Now we're going to look at a few of the changes in Swift 3 to the syntax. So I'm going to start by declaring an array, and this is just going to be 1, 3, 5, 7. And the way you access functions is really shortened. The functions that you're calling, for example, on an array to do different manipulations is not going to be near as long or verbose as what you had in previous versions of Swift. So for example, if I want to know the index of an element, I can do ARR and then index. And instead of something like index of, which we might have seen in previous versions, I can just, it's going to be inside of the parameters. So I would call like this, pass in a 7, and then I get back, it's going to be 3. So the indexes are 0 index based. And so right here, I'm going to be at position number 3. And then if I want the minimum, I can just call min, and that will give me the minimum element inside of the array. Again, very short in syntax. I can also do ARR, enumerated, and you'll notice here the difference being a D. So a value is being returned. So right now, you notice there's not a manipulation here, but the value gets returned, and that's what the D is for. So when you see this D, it means something's being returned. So if I want to do ARR reversed with the D, so again, something's being returned. And then to do something a little bit more involved, so if I have something like this, hello, and I've got spaces, I can trim those. And to trim them, it would look like this. So I want to do trimming characters, and I am looking to do just white spaces. And now you can see the result over here, hello, without any of the spaces inside of it. And then I've got my variables, so I can do some manipulations here. I can do contains, and then whatever the string is going to be. So it's, let's say EL, and then that's going to return a Boolean. So EL is inside of there. And then I can do result equals, and I want to replace occurrences of EL with LE. So for example, I can say result and replacing occurrences of, notice again, inside of the parameter list, the naming of my parameters kind of fulfills what used to be stuck inside of the function call, just like it was up here with trimming characters. In is now part of the parameter naming. So the of is going to be EL, and then whatever I want to replace it with, which is this here. And then you can see I get the flip over here on the HLELO. Then I can do result capitalized, so something is returned in that case. And then I can do result and lower case, again with the D on the case there. And then for fonts, some of the differences, for example, UI font. And if I want to get a preferred type of font, I can do preferred font, and then here I would say UI font style headline. So a lot of difference in the way this is now written out compared to what it used to be. And colors is, you can really tell the difference here because we're not having to do some convoluted black color, blue color. We already know it's going to be a color, so all I have to do in this case is just, for example, blue. So no more verbose on syntax on the colors themselves. And if I want to do UI color, red, and say something like the CG color. So a little bit of difference here. CG is no longer capitalized, it's now lowercase. And then I can do UI device and say just current, like that. And then there's NS text alignment, and I can just do a left. So again, everything's been pretty much compressed. The function calls are not as long as there used to be. A lot of what you used to see inside of the function name has now moved into the parameter list. And then they've just done things to shorten it, like this blue is no longer blue color, and just make everything a little bit more simpler and easier to read. So now we're going to go into a basic project and look at some of the UI table view delegate changes that have occurred. All right, so this is just a very simple project that I've created brand new, and I'm just going to show some of the different syntax here. So view will appear. Let's see, view will appear. And notice here that they're using this default whenever no value is actually needed for this parameter value. So you just get the underscore. I'm going to comment out the code part. And for the table views, I need to add my delegate and source. So UI table view delegate, UI table view. Let's see, I actually want source. And then down here, so I'm going to start with self row at index. This is a very common one when you're using the table views. This lets you basically do manipulations on each item inside of a table view. So self for row at index right there. So again, we have this default value coming in, and a lot of this other, there are other parameters still pretty much similar, but this is a change right here. So when you're even converting code from 2.3 to 3.0, you're going to see this is getting inserted into your table views. So just kind of be aware that that will be going on. And I am just going to return a UI table view cell as a default. And some of these other related functions, so we have number of sections is needed. And I can just return 1. Then we have finally the number of rows in section, and just return 1. So notice here again we have this underscore, and you're going to see that throughout a lot of these. This one here doesn't have it, but notice this syntax here inside the parameters. So Swift 3 is making a lot of use and readability with these parameters and how they're naming things. So I'm just going to build and make sure all of this is going to build okay, and it does. All right, so just a few changes that you're noticing on these built-in functions. We've got the underscore first, or we've got a little bit more elaboration on parameter naming, and not so much inside of the function naming, just like we saw in the playground.